Section 1. You will hear a conversation between a man and a woman discussing a celebration at an outdoor centre. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. Now the full test will begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, as the recording is not played twice. Listen carefully to the conversation and answer questions 1 to 5.
Good morning. Welcome to Jean's Outdoor Center.
Thank you.
What can I do for you?
I'm looking for a suitable place to celebrate my birthday. When I drove by this place a couple of days ago, I thought this might be a good place, as it is quite far from the city. It would be a really different place to be.
May I ask when your birthday is?
On the 18th of May.
All right. In the summer, that's a very nice time. We would be able to use the stone oven, make a bonfire, and use the camping area if you wish to stay for the night.
That sounds great.
Okay. May I first take your phone number and full name before we start to talk about any further details?
Of course. My full name is Catherine Truman. That's spelled Kathyrine and Truman. And my telephone number is 0348-237-855.
Got that. Thank you. So, when's the party supposed to be?
I'd like to celebrate on the 20th of May, and the party should start at 6 p.m., because I still need to work on that day and then get ready for the party, which I guess you know will take some time.
Oh dear, working on a Saturday? I know nobody who enjoys that. Well, my calendar shows that the date is free, and up to now, there haven't been any other bookings made for that day yet. However, horse riding is not available on that day, as the horses will be resting. I hope that you didn't plan to do that.
Oh no, that's fine. I think that food and a bonfire will be fine for my guests.
Speaking of guests, how many people have you invited, or are you intending to invite?
It'll be 30 people.
Okay.
Before the conversation continues, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer questions 6 to 10.
Before I book any activities for the party, I'd like to have a list of the activities that are available and their prices. My budget is $800, and I would like to stay within this boundary. This must also include the food and drinks consumed.
Okay, let's go through the price lists. So, as you can see, we are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., from Monday through Friday. On the weekends, however, we are open from 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. These opening times don't interfere with your party, as you're planning to spend the night here, aren't you?
It depends on the price I would have to pay.
Okay, so we offer various activities. To start with, we can offer to make a bonfire for $15. This money is just to pay for the wood we need.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'll definitely book the bonfire. What else is there?
There are also various tours we offer, like for instance the boat tour, which takes between 2 and 3 hours and costs $6 per person. Then there's the cycling tour for $8 per person and the hiking tour for $25 per person. Our special offer for the summer is baking in our newly built stone oven. This can be done in groups of up to 15 people maximum and costs $5 per person.
Okay, that sounds great. Let me see. I would really like to bake, so I'll take that, and I'll also take the boat tour.
All right, let's get to the food and drinks. We offer a small and a large buffet. The small one serves approximately 40 people and costs $200, while the large one costs $400 and serves 80 to 100 people. As an extra, you can also book a lamb on a spit for $35. I think for you, I'd plan $150 for the drinks.
All right, then I'll take the small buffet, please, and the drinks, of course.
Okay, and lastly, we offer 3 types of accommodation. We can offer camping with tents for $40 per tent, and they hold 4 people each. We also have some teepees, which are big tents that hold up to 20 people for $80 per teepee. However, our greatest attraction is the treehouse for $100. It can house up to 20 people as well.
Okay, half of my guests will drive back home, so the tree house will be perfect. Great. According to my calculations, that makes $795 in total, so that's just under my budget.
Yes, I think that's right.
Okay, thank you for that. Could we take a look at the tree house?
Of course we can. It's right over there.
That is the end of section 1. You will now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 2. Section 2. You will hear a woman giving some people information about a walking tour around the town of Barton. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 14. Now listen carefully to the information talk and answer questions 11 to 14.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Sharon. Thanks for coming today to my walking tour of the town of Barton. First, I'd like to give you a quick overview of where we're going to today. Right now, we're in front of the Barton Tourist Office. From here, we'll move down the pedestrian road towards the river. While we're on this road, we'll first pass the town hall on the right, and then right after that, the Old Town Prison. Opposite the prison, we'll see the Town Museum, although we won't be visiting that this morning. When we get to the river, you'll see the river docks, where people can take boat trips up and down the River Stroud. We'll turn right here and walk down the path next to the river. While we're walking, we'll first see on the right the Museum of Modern Art, and then after that, the oldest house in the town, and then, just before we get to Charlton Bridge, the memorial to Sir John Barton, the founder of the town. Across the river from the Modern Art Museum, we'll see the impressive facade of the main town mosque, which was built only 15 years ago for the Muslim population of the town. We won't cross Charlton Bridge, but we'll go to the right again and walk up the street, stopping at Regent Square, in the center of which is the town's War Memorial Fountain. There's a great ice cream parlor there, and we can rest a while, look at the view, and eat some ice cream. When we're done with that, we'll take the road that goes right off the square and walk back down towards the tourist office again. While we're walking, you'll see Barton Shopping Mall on the right. We won't stop there on our tour, but if you want to do some shopping, it's only a short walk back. There are a number of interesting things to see on the left. You'll first see the town's famous Gothic church, and then the library and sports center. For your information, the town's train station is right behind the library as we pass it, and the cinema is next to that.
You now have some time to look at questions 15 to 20. Now listen to the rest of the information talk and answer questions 15 to 20.
I'll be speaking at each of the attractions to let you know all the interesting information. So I think the tour will take around 2.5 hours, and that's including the 20-minute break for ice cream. This afternoon, I'll be doing a 3-hour walking tour of the town museum that we will pass early on in this walk. By the way, I do not charge anything for this walk, and I live only by tips. If you feel the walk has been worthwhile, past walkers with me have tipped between 5 and 20 pounds. It depends on your budget and how good a job you think I've done. Now, just before we begin, I've been asked to talk a little bit about the entertainment on offer tonight around the town. Tonight is a weekday, so there's not much in the way of live music, which someone asked me about. Nor will you find here much in the way of football, as the town team only plays at the weekends. At the town cinema, there is a double bill film with films on novels by the famous Russian novelist Leo Tolstoy. That starts at 7 o'clock. We won't see the town theater on our walk today, but there is a tour of it offered tonight as there are no performances tonight. You might be tired of tours today by then, though. One fun thing to do that does not involve any walking is at the pub called The Crown. They have their weekly quiz on tonight. I often go to that myself with some friends. What I will be doing tonight, though, is to go to a cafe in the town's main square, where I will be watching some street theater that is scheduled this evening to start at 8 o'clock. Barton is quite well known for this, so it would be an excellent and different thing to do. There is some tennis on in London, too, and I told some people that they could watch that on TV in their hotel or in pubs, but I've been told that bad weather in London has stopped all play, so that won't be an option anymore. So, those are a few things you could consider, and maybe I'll see you later if you do what I'm doing. Now, let's get on with our walking tour.
That is the end of section 2. You will now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 3. Section 3. You will hear 3 students and a lecturer discussing the students' agriculture projects. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
Now, you 3 have come to tell me how you're getting on with your agriculture projects.
That's right, Professor Evans.
So, to start with, I'd like you to tell me about the collection of your primary data. Would you like to start, Steve?
Of course. I've been studying how parasites affect the growing of potatoes in this part of the world. In order to gather data, I've liaised with some farmers local to the university, and they've nearly all allowed me to work in their fields and collect data. The problem is that all the farmers around here use insecticides that kill the parasites. It's been easy, therefore, to collect information on farms with no parasite dangers, but it was a challenge to get information on farms that had parasites.
How did you manage to get the parasite data then?
I had to rent a field away from other farms and plant potatoes myself. I, of course, did not use insecticides, and I've managed to collect enough data to compare with the other data on farms with insecticides.
Wasn't that expensive, Steve?
Not too bad, actually. There was an initial outlay for the rental and the planting, but I managed to do a deal with a local farmer who harvested and sold them. He paid me for them, and as they were bio-potatoes with no insecticides, I got a good price and I even made a small profit. My housemates and I also ate potatoes every day for a couple of weeks.
How about you, Simona?
Well, as you know, I'm doing a project on growth rates in different varieties of tomatoes. Now, the weather here is not so good for tomatoes, but the University Botanical Garden assigned me an area in one of their greenhouses, and so I was able to grow plenty of varieties. And I had lots of success with gathering data for my project. Like Steve, my house ate lots of tomatoes through the early summer.
So, Robert, how did you get on?
I had a lot of initial problems. I wanted to look at different soils and how acidity affected growth of certain plants. I started a bit too late and I wasn't able to get agreements with different places about being able to use the different bits of land with the acidities that I wanted.
How did you deal with that?
In the end, I just had to ditch that idea and go for my plan B. This was about the growing techniques of apple farmers. The season starts later, so I had enough time to prepare and contact farmers. Where I live at home with my parents is an important apple growing area, so I was able to use my holidays to gather all the information there.
You now have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen to the rest of the discussion and answer questions 26 to 30.
So, do you have any questions about the rest of the work that you need to do on the project?
We're a little confused about when we need to be finished by. We've heard different things.
You need to give me a hard copy by the 28th of February next year. I then have a week to read your projects and make comments on what you need to do to improve. You then have until the 30th of April to submit the final version to the university. Remember as well that you can't give in a hard copy this year. It has to be submitted by email to the course administrator, which is Mrs. Roberts. Her email address is in the course literature, on our website and on the department notice board.
There is no mention in the project guide about a word limit. Is there one?
Yes, there is. It's in the project guide, but it's hard to find. We'll make it clearer next year. Last year, the word limit was deemed insufficient at 8,000 words, so this year it's been increased by 2,000. We hope that this will give you all the scope to do a good job. Be careful not to waffle though, or we'll be cutting it down by 1,000 next year for those after you. The limit also doesn't include the appendices, which is another change from last year. There's no limit on them, but please be sensible and don't give me 20,000 words.
I've a last question, Professor. What happens if our projects are not good enough?
That doesn't happen very often, Robert. I'll get to read the first drafts, and unless the project is incredibly bad, I can give you the advice needed to get it up to scratch. If in the end it really does fail, then you won't be able to graduate. You'd have to redo the project or do a different one the next year in your own time.
Thanks, Professor.
That is the end of section 3. You will now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 4. Section 4. You will hear part of a psychology lecture on the Rorschach test. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today we continue our overview of the different psychological tests that have been used over the years in order to profile people and explain out-of-the-ordinary behavior. The test we'll look at today is the Rorschach test. The Rorschach test is a projective psychological test developed in 1921 to measure thought disorder. It was first developed from the observation that schizophrenia patients often interpret ambiguous images in very unusual ways. In the test, a participant is shown a series of 10 ink blot cards and is directed to respond to each by saying what the ink blots look like. The Rorschach test is practically the only test that evaluates in this way. The Rorschach ink blots are supposed to remain secret so as not to pollute the test population. The theory behind the test, created by Hermann Rorschach, is that a test taker's spontaneous or unrehearsed responses reveal deep secrets or significant information about his or her personality or innermost thoughts. These days, nearly all psychologists avoid using the method applied to the Rorschach as it is regarded as unreliable at best and dangerously misleading at worst. A few psychologists, however, still believe in it as a valid diagnostic tool despite the availability of more modern and sophisticated personality tests. The psychologists who do still see value in the Rorschach test frequently argue amongst themselves as to the manner of its interpretation, the meaning of the results, and even its validity. Several different schools of thought have even sprung up for the interpretation of the results, muddying the waters even further. For those still using the Rorschach test, the Exner comprehensive system is one of the more popular scoring methodologies in use today. Based on the work of John E. Exner, responses are scored using a number of categories. There is a reference to the level of vagueness of the answer, or if there is a synthesis of multiple images in the blot. What makes the subject say what he or she does is also significant. For example, how the respondents explain how the ink blots resemble what they think it resembles is very significant. Amongst other criteria, the degree of mental organizing activity that is involved in producing the response and any illogical, incongruous, or incoherent aspects of responses are also used in evaluation. Using the scores for these categories, the examiner then performs a series of mathematical calculations producing a structural summary of the test data. The results of the structural summary are claimed to show personality characteristics that have been demonstrated to be related to different kinds of responses. Both the calculations of scores and the interpretation are often done electronically. The Rorschach test is supposed to be administered in a very particular and rigid format in order to minimize variance in the results. Like the cards themselves, the test procedure itself is also supposed to be kept secret from the general public. In the standard test protocol, test takers are given the cards one at a time in a specific order, and the psychologist is supposed to place them directly in the taker's hands facing up and in a particular orientation. The order is not supposed to vary. The genuine Rorschach cards are numbered on the back primarily for the psychologist's use. If takers notice the numbers or remark on them, a note is supposed to be made about this. The cards themselves are large, about 7 by 9 inches, and are made of stiffened cardboard or, in modern variations, a textured plastic that mimics the feel of cardboard. 5 of the cards have purely black and white images, 2 of the cards are black, white, and red, and the last 3 cards have various colors of ink used in the blots. The test giver will almost never give any guidance. They will instead tell the test takers that they're free to do whatever they like with the card. About 50% of people who take the test flip or rotate the cards. It's reported that some psychologists will penalize people in terms of the results if they don't turn the cards around or upside down. During the test, the psychologist or psychiatrist will record everything the taker says. In general, questioning or asking about the results are supposed to have significance to the test provider, as does asking nearly anything about the blots themselves. It used to be that the notes were taken in a special shorthand that was specifically developed for the Rorschach test, although these days many psychologists rely more on recordings and will only make cursory, handwritten notes during the test. Often the psychologist will attempt to shield his or her note-taking from the takers so as not to distract them or make them nervous, as this would create a skew in the test results.
That is the end of section 4. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.